Welcome students, welcome to a strategy video for FRM in 2026. Whether you should pursue FRM or not. See, the answer is yes because it is one of the best certification on the planet in finance. But if you have decided that okay, let's do FRM, if you're thinking about it and you're planning to do FRM in 2026, then what are the key points that you should remember? What are the key points that you should keep in mind and see? Most importantly, being a financial risk manager is not an easy task. You need to understand what it requires, a lot of preparation, it requires a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, and what are the pointers that you should remember, you should keep in mind before starting your preparation. The first few things that you should remember that are around these 6 critical pointers. You should know what are the different level of FRM examination are. The second is what the schedule of examination is and when you can actually sit for the examination. You should know how much it will cost you, what the fees are for each level and each part. The fourth point, which is critical, is the curriculum, what the syllabus is, what the topics are that you have to learn, because what is important is that if you don't understand the syllabus, if you don't understand the topics, and if the topics are not of your interest, doing FRM, which is itself a very difficult examination to grasp and crack, will be a very tiresome exercise for you, will be a tiresome experience for you. So first understand what the curriculum is. Do you want to do it? Do you love to do it? Do you want to study it? And the fifth, strategy. Yes, every examination has a strategy. In a very simple term, how much time it takes. What are the critical things that you have to keep in mind? How many hours you have to invest daily? How many months you have to invest? And most importantly, what the approach is. 6 point, gauge yourself before starting this examination. And even if you have started the preparation of this examination, first gauge yourself. Where do you stand? And with that, let's enter into the first point, that is how many exams, how many levels are in FRM. So FRM is conducted by a non-profit organization, that is GARP, the Global Association of Risk Professional, as you see on the screen. You see the website there, and I would highly recommend that you should visit this site. It is critical for you. Now, as you see, it has two parts. They don't say levels, they don't say examination, they say FRM Part 1 and FRM Part 2. FRM Part 1 is a 4-hour examination with 100 questions. FRM Part 2 is also a 4-hour examination with 80 questions only. Both the examination are multiple choice question based examination, MCQ, so you don't have to write long essays. So these are the two parts. Second, you have to understand is when you can sit for this examination, when they are scheduled. So they are scheduled every year. For 2026, they are scheduled for May, August and November. Remember, earlier it used to be a twice a year examination. Now it is 3 times a year. Now, there are 3 things that you should understand about this scheduling. First, what your exam date is. Second, when the registration closes. Third, what the date is to select the examination or select the venue is. 3 things for each examination. So first, let's talk about the exam date. As you can see on the screen, in May, if you want to sit for FRM Part 1 examination, it is from May 9th to May 15th. Part 2 is from May 16th to May 19th. The exam date for August are August 7th and 8th only, and it is AM examination for FRM Part 1, because on the same day you have the FRM Part 2 examination, which is PM examination on the August 7th and 8th. And remember, for November, FRM Part 1 is from November 14th to 20th, and FRM Part 2 is from November 21st to 25th. Now, one thing which is critical to understand is why August has PM and AM examination or AM and PM examination. The reason is that you can sit for both the examination on same day. So if you're sitting for FRM Part 1, you can also sit for FRM Part 2. And that's why it is AM and PM based examination in August. Even in May and November, you can sit for both Part 1 and Part 2 simultaneously, but you have separate windows for FRM Part 1 and FRM Part 2. The examination windows for May and November are different. They do not overlap. Now registration, as you see on the screen. There are two registration dates that you should understand. One is early bird, another is standard. Now early bird ends for May on January 31st. For August examination it is April 30th, and for November it is July 31st. Why it is important? Early bird is important because you have to pay lower fees, or it will cost you less if you go for early bird registration. I would recommend that you should always register under early bird because it actually saves around $200, and we'll see what the fees are. Standard registration you see for May end on March 31st, for August on June 30th, and for November on September 30th. What you need to understand here, which is critical to understand, is that after these dates you cannot register for examination. The last thing which is critical is that even if you register for examination, you should remember that you haven't chosen your venue and dates. The last date to choose your venue and date is April 25th for May examination and July 25th for August examination, and for November it is October 24th. Again, a very important recommendation, because sometimes you will not get your desired venue or desired date, so it is better that you choose as early as possible. So we have completed the schedule for examination. The next thing that we will understand is the fee structure, how much it will cost you. So all the level, whether FRM Part 1 or Part 2, whether it is in May, August or November, will cost you $1,000 for early birds, $1,200 for standard. We talked about the last date for early bird registration and the last date for standard. Now what is included in this? Included in this is one-time enrollment charges for the examination that you see in the screen, the bottom half, which is $400. So if you haven't appeared for examination earlier, it will cost you $1,000 and $1,200 based on early bird or standard. If you have appeared for examination earlier and failed, they will not charge you registration fees of $400 again. So therefore the examination fees will become $600 and $800. Okay, but we are making this video for those who are appearing for first time in the examination. So your cost would be $1,000 and $1,200. Now one thing which is very important is that GARP provide e-books free of cost. But if you want the printed book, the cost is USD 300, and they will charge you for shipping as well. So I would recommend not buying the printed book because it is costlier, and it is better that you go for some other books rather than the GARP book. There are some pretty good vendors who provide FRM books. Okay, and ebooks are sufficient. If you want to have a cursory view of GARP book, they are sufficient. Okay, next thing that we have to understand, which is super critical, that is curriculum. In FRM Part 1, you have four books. Foundation of Risk Management, which is book 1. Book 2 is Quantitative Analysis. Book 3 is Financial Market and Product. Book 4 is Valuation and Risk Model. FRM Part 2 is more about market risk, which is book 1, credit risk, which is book 2, operational risk and resiliency, which is book 3, liquidity and risk management, or liquidity and treasury risk measurement and management, which is book 4, and risk management and investment management as book 5. However, if I say at a very high level, FRM Part 2 is about market risk, credit risk, liquidity risk, investment risk, operational risk, and current affairs. So there are 6 topics that you have to understand. However, this is a very high level view of FRM Part 1 and Part 2 curriculum. You should understand what are the topics in these books that you have to learn. If I talk about Part 1, then Book 1 in Part 1 can be divided into 3 sections. The first is Philosophy of Risk Management, the second is Portfolio Management, and the third is Code of Conduct. So book 1, which is Foundation of Risk Management, has 3 sections: Philosophy of Risk Management, Portfolio Management, and Code of Conduct. Book 2, which is Quantitative Analysis, is nothing but applied statistics in finance. So you will study mean, median, mode, standard deviation, probability distribution, normal distribution, chi-square distribution, F distribution, T distribution, hypothesis testing, regression, and time series analysis. That is what you will study in quantitative analysis, which is book 2. Financial market and products and valuation and risk model, which are the book 3 and book 4. They are very haphazardly written, so you should understand what book 3 and book 4 cover diligently. First thing they cover is fixed income and bonds, end-to-end fixed income and bonds, everything about fixed income and bond. The second thing that they cover is derivative product like call option, put option, forward, future, swaps, IRIS, CCS, CDS. Everything about derivative from valuation to strategy is covered in FRM part 1. The third thing they cover is information about the financial institution like banks, fund, insurance, etc. And one thing which is very critical, which is in this book, is that they will teach you the concept of VAR, expected shortfall, and standard deviation, that why it is a risk measure. Okay, because you're studying financial risk management. So these are the topic inside these books that you will study in FRM part 1. And I would say very clearly that book 3 and book 4 are written in a very complex manner. It is difficult to read, difficult to understand, because they're written in a very haphazard manner. Chapter 1 does not talk about chapter 2, chapter 2 does not talk about chapter 1, so there is no linkage. Okay, FRM part 2 is more structured. These books are pretty much structured towards market risk, which is book 1. In market risk, you understand what interest rate risk is. You understand the advanced concept of value at risk and expected shortfall. In market risk, you also understand the concepts of correlation and copula, very complex topics of copula. You also understand few concepts of option like volatility, smile. In credit risk, you try to understand broadly 3 things: probability of default, how you model probability of default; second, how you model loss given default, which is strictly touched upon, very slightly touched upon loss given default; and then the concept of credit war. Operational risk is more about philosophy of operation risk, the different measurement tools that we have to calculate operation risk. See, please understand, the operation risk refers to failure due to people, processes, and systems. So it is very difficult to model. So they talk about what are the possible models or modeling techniques that we have to model operation risk. In liquidity risk and treasury risk management, we focus on liquidity risk, which is whether we have sufficient cash flow or not, or whether we can convert our assets into cash flows or not. They also talk about transfer pricing, which is very important for bank. They also talk about asset liability management, again very important for bank. So you can see that those who are in banking domain, in treasury rules, will find treasury and risk management or liquidity risk management as one of the most critical topic in FRM part 2. The last topic is risk management and investment management. If I have to say it in one liner, it is the riskiness in your portfolio. So it is basically teaching you how you manage your portfolio risk. And that is what they teach in this complete 5th book. Definitely there are also current affairs. So in current affairs, there are 8 to 10 topics in FRM part 2 that are related to current affair, that is given in book 3. Okay. Next is about strategies. Now the strategy cannot be identical for different people. So I have divided it into 3 categories. First is those who are just starting their FRM preparation. I'm calling them as newbies. Category 2 is mid-level, category 3 is pro-level. When I say category 1, 2 and 3, it is categorized based on how much financial understanding you have, how well you understood different financial instruments like stock, bonds, and derivative. If you have just heard about stock, if you have just heard about bond, then you are a newbie. You have no experience. You are from a different domain. You have just completed Bachelor in Commerce or Finance, no other certification, and you have a very little understanding of financial concept and terminology, then you are a newbie. The preparation strategy would be different for you. Category 2, mid-level, those who have some exposure. For example, in their bachelor, they have done certification like NCFM and NISM, where they have properly studied derivatives, stock market modules, or bond modules, or some dedicated certification. Then you fall in the category 2. If you have done MBA in finance, then you are at mid-level, category 2. Because in MBA finance, you study topics like bond valuation, derivative product. You have good understanding of them. Category 3 are pro level. Pro level are those who have done certification like CFA level 1, CFA level 2, and CFA level 3. Anyone above CFA level 1, if they have attempted it diligently and passed, is pro level. If someone has cracked all NCFM and NISM certification, I would also call them pro because they have a very good understanding of financial concepts and market. Or if you are working in finance domain, hardcore finance, valuation of fixed income, derivative, stock, or risk management for more than 4 years, then you are a pro. Now the strategy would be different for each one of them. If you are a category 1, you need long hours of concept building. The first thing you should understand, if you're a category 1, then never ever try to attempt FRM part 1 and part 2 simultaneously. Never ever do that mistake, because if you pass FRM 2 and fail in FRM part 1, then both result becomes invalid. So what is necessary to understand is that first you crack FRM part 1, then wait a few months, then appear for FRM part 2. For FRM part 1 and part 2, I have divided preparation into 3 segments. One is concept building, as you see on the screen. You have to invest a lot of time in building your concept. Then you have to read the GAR provided book or any vendor book at least twice. You should have solved at least 1000 to 1200 questions for each level. So the 3 section I have given here is concept building for newbie in FRM part 1, which will take 4 months because the concepts are difficult to understand, not easy to retain. So you have to read it again and again and understand what it is. Even for FRM part 2, it's not easy. It will take at least 4.5 to 5 months. So even in FRM part 2, concept building is going to be a tougher exercise. I'm assuming you have done FRM part 1 and then you are setting for FRM part 2. Still, it takes 4.5 to 5 months. I would recommend reading the book again and again. All the calculation presented here in the terms of months are based on how many hours you put in daily, whether you are a newbie, mid-level or pro. The assumption is that you will study for 2 hours daily, irrespective of whether it is weekend or holiday or whatever it is. You can combine concept building, book reading, but you have to read your book twice, whether it is FRM part 1 or part 2. It is essential to read books because the language used in examination is very different from daily language. It is complex to read and understand. It is not straightforward. The language they use in examination is very much convoluted, so you should read the book and have a very good understanding of the language. The last part is question solving. As I mentioned, you should at least solve 1000 to 1200 questions and do a proper revision. So you can see FRM part 1 and part 2 will take 6 to 6.5 months individually for a newbie. Now the second category, before going to second category, I would recommend that you must enroll to a very good institute if you are a newbie. Okay. Now the second category that we have understand is a mid-level. One thing I want to recommend for category 1 and 2, again, both of them, you must enroll in a very good institute for concept building. It is critical, it is must have for both of them because the concept in FRM are not plain vanilla straightforward concept. A good institute reduce this time significantly and your journey will become super easy. So please take this recommendation. The concepts are very difficult in FRM examination. So for FRM part 1, the time required will reduce from about 4 months to 3 months. I would still say you should read the book at least twice, but it won't take as much as time for you if you are a mid-level. So 3.5 months for concept building and reading books is more than sufficient. 1 month definitely you should dedicate for revision and question solving. Again, you have to solve 1000 to 1200 questions. So in total, it will take 4.5 months. Now all the calculation, as I said, is with the assumption that you're studying for 2 hours daily, irrespective whether it is a weekend, holiday or whatever it is. Now in FRM part 2, I have reduced it to 4.5 months plus 1 month for book reading and plus 1 month for question solving and revision. Actually, I haven't reduced it. Please understand the reason I haven't reduced anything in FRM Part 2 is because whether you are a newbie or mid-level, the assumption is that you have cleared FRM Part 1 and then you are sitting for FRM Part 2 examination. This is a very critical assumption. You must enroll in a very good institute for FRM Part 1 and FRM Part 2 if you are in Category 1 and Category 2. What is a good institute we have? We might talk about in a minute. Now Category 3. Again you see that I haven't reduced any time for FRM Part 2. Now, but if you are a pro level, then in FRM Part 1, the amount of time that to be invested reduced significantly and you can crack the examination, you can sit for the examination in 3 months. Okay. Now again, FRM Part 2, as I mentioned, whether you have cleared CFA Level 1, CFA Level 2, CFA Level 3, FRM Part 1, it is not going to help you much. Even if you have done MBA Finance, it is not going to help you significantly. You should understand one thing which is critical. Whether you are preparing for FRM Part 1 or Part 2, whether you are Category 1, 2 or 3 student, newbie, mid-level, pro level, doesn't matter. You're appearing for FRM to get selected in a good profile through interview process. If you have written FRM in your resume and you are a chartered holder, definitely it will add weight to your resume. It is equivalent to a tier 2 MBA in India, and in some cases it gives a very tough competition to tier 1 MBA colleges in India. So yes, it gives a lot of weight to your resume. But if you have just cleared FRM by only passing the examination, just to crack the examination, it won't help you much in the long run. Because in interview, the expectation of the interview is that you know the concept in detail. They will grill you on these concepts. So we'll try to test you. So what they will do, they will try to test you on every concept discussed in FRM. So if you just crack the examination by solving few questions and think you are a pro and then you are done and dusted with FRM, it won't help you. It will only help you to get your resume selected, not you selected for the profile. That's it. So therefore, in the interview process, you may fail. And because I have seen people failing in interview after clearing FRM, both the level. So what do you need to do? You need to have a very good conceptual understanding, and thus reiterating that you should enroll for some good institute if you are not a confident player for your concepts in FRM. You should be very confident with your concept. Now, there are people who comes and say, okay, I will teach you FRM in 1 month or 2 months. You can crack the examination, go for it, no issues. But only keep in mind whether you are truly understanding the concepts or not. Just cracking the examination won't help you in long run. You need detailed depth understanding of the topic, because in the interview they will really grill you. Now the last thing that you have to understand is to gauge yourself. Where do you stand? Okay. Now the first thing, there are different approaches to gauge yourself. Approach 1 is very simple and straightforward, is to solve mock of FRM Part 1. And they are pretty easily available in the market. Just try to find the mock for FRM Part 1. And if you're scoring 40%, you are between Category 2 and 3 and you are good to go and can do your self preparation for FRM Part 1. You don't need any institute to prepare for FRM Part 1. Okay, so if your score in the mock of FRM Part 1 is 40%, then you can start your self preparation. Now approach 2 and 3 to gauge yourself are similar. You should ask someone, a subject matter expert in finance who has cleared FRM Part 1 and Part 2 and has good conceptual understanding, or a CFA charter holder, or any finance expert working in finance domain for more than 4 years. Ask them to interview yourself. If that person interviews you on the concept of fixed income, derivative, quants, which is applied statistics, regression, portfolio management, and you're able to score more than 65% in that interview, then you fall in the Category 2 or 3. You can do the self preparation for FRM Part 1. For FRM Part 2, I will always recommend that you go for a good institute. Approach 3, you ask SOFR to interview you. They have a process to interview candidate, so you can WhatsApp them. SOFR number is provided here. You can also email them. They have an interview process. In that interview, they will test you for about 15 to 30 minutes. provide you a written email explaining how should you prepare for examination, whether you should go for self preparation or enroll in a good institute. They will recommend a good institute based on your understanding, capability and background. So these are the three approaches by which you can gauge yourself whether you should go for self preparation mode or enroll in a good institute for FRM part 1. As I said earlier, FRM part 2, you should always enroll in a good institute. Good institute means genuinely good institute, not those who simply read the book, explain FRM part 2 superficially. Don't enroll in those institute. Now last, SOFR is one of the institute. They provide 1 month free access to the curriculum for the newbie for FRM part 1. So you can also WhatsApp them and get your free enrollment for 1 month. They will only ask you to verify yourself as a true aspirant. They have a procedure for the same. Okay, with that, I would end the discussion here. There will be another FRM strategy video where we will deep dive into FRM part 1 in detail and FRM part 2 in detail. So till then, thank you. Have a nice day.